Well, good morning, everybody. If you don't mind, today I want to start you off in Europe because over the weekend we watched a very deep low pressure system kind of roll just like this to the west of Greece. And this morning it sits here and continues to spin. And the issue here was that the storm, which I believe they gave the name Daniel, Storm Daniel, over the weekend produced just a tremendous amount of flooding in parts of Greece. And you've probably seen it in the news lately, just how wet it's been here in some of the videos of the flooding that's going on. But I want to let you know it's not done yet. We still have this low that's sitting and spinning in this area, and we're expecting to have quite a bit more rain. You can also see the very deep low that's sitting off the coast of the Iberian Peninsula and the British Isles here. Just impressive to see what's going on across the pond today. Now, I do want to show you this, one of my favorite websites, blitzertongue.org. The map you're looking at here is a 48-hour accumulation of lightning strikes. So as Daniel kind of snuck down here and started to spin up, and we can get these circulations. It's kind of amazing in the Mediterranean. They almost take on like tropical characteristics. In fact, they're often called what are they called? Metacanes. I think that's what they call them. And you can see, though, that this one produced a lot of lightning. So in total, 48-hour total here, over 315,000 lightning strikes just in this one small area in this part of Southeast Europe. So just wanted to keep you up to speed on something that was happening internationally. And while we're here, at least not in the United States, I want to take you down to some satellite imagery. You are in Panama. And this is the Panama Canal and the large lake in the middle. This is, of course, the area that's been under such severe drought that we've had difficulty getting ships out. Now, we have some high enough resolution satellite data that's publicly available that you can go in and have a look at some of the imagery, and you can see the ships all stacked up here. So you see these little dashes? Those are the ships. In fact, let's zoom in one more time. Yeah, this is where all the traffic is kind of bunched up here. And then if you use this site, you can kind of sneak through and go right through the canal. So you can see some of the ships coming in here. There they go. This is into the big lake, so we can find all the ships in the lake here. And it's kind of fun to follow them to know where they're eventually going to go to come out on the other side. In fact, I get a bit lost here. There it is. There's the rest of the canal right in through here. So I always find it fascinating. Just look at the ships coming through the canal. This was just on the 1st of September. And then as they go through the last set of lock and dams, they then come back out here, and you can now see all the ships waiting on this side. So this ongoing drought issue that we had in the Panama Canal is still quite evident, and the traffic jam is large in this area. So I just wanted to show you kind of a different way to have a look at this using some of the satellite data we've got. Okay, from there, over the weekend, we watched a very deep trough that kind of snuck into the western United States, and we'd been forecasting the depth of this trough to really initiate a lot of showers and storms in this area. That was the main, discussion point at the end of last week. We noticed a large ridge was going to open up in the midsection of the country, and that was going to bring in quite a bit of heat with it. And there was this low that was sitting here that was going to help ignite some storms along the Mississippi Valley. Meanwhile, this is Gert out here, what was left of Gert, but a lot of folks were paying attention to this deeper trough because of the very heavy rainfall it put down. Our last 72 hours of total accumulated precipitation is shown here. And you've probably seen a lot of the news reports about the flooding that happened in parts of Nevada. But I want to point out there was heavy rains that came into the Sierra Nevada. There was heavy rains that came into parts of Arizona and Utah, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming. And this low last night ejected out into the plains. We'll take a look at it in a few moments, and delivered a lot of severe weather here in parts of the Dakotas. Also, I'll show you this too. Some of this was not rain. We had some snow at higher elevations. Some of our ski resorts picked up some very early season snow. Now, the rain that was right into this corridor was desperately needed because parts of Louisiana, southern Mississippi, and Texas have been in just a tremendously deep drought that needs breaking, and it needs moisture to really take care of the longer-term water stress issues that have been going on across parts of our southern United States. So I just wanted to show you this is what we saw over the weekend. Now, on radar early this morning, this is where the low came out last night. And you're going to watch it rip off these storms right here through parts of the Dakotas. Locally heavy rain, several reports of wind damage, but this is beginning to give us a taste of where we're going. You can see the low curling up, and if you take a low like this and put it in winter, all of this is snow on the backside. So we're beginning this transition into September, October, November, where we start to see better upper level dynamics from a stronger jet stream that start to just peel off low pressure systems like this. And so it's just impressive to kind of see where that is. And just so you know, there's the snow we did get over the weekend. This is a 72-hour snowfall analysis map. It's been a long time since we looked at these, but there was a little bit of snow here. This morning on our all hazards weather map, still have heat advisories out for a lot of places as the heat tries to push its way east. But you can tell on the backside it is cool. I mean, take a look here. We've got, this area in Nevada that this morning has, frost advisories out. So this is the transition we're expecting to see here as we go forward. Now, before I get into that forecast, I need to tell you about some of the other things that are kind of pushing the atmosphere around here a little bit. And right now, early this morning, we've got two areas that we're going to keep an eye on. The National Hurricane Center is watching, one called 95L and the one that follows it, which has got a 70% chance of developing here. Now, we are pretty confident that this one is going to develop and probably become a hurricane. Some of the forecast models are taking this way up there to Cat 3, Cat 4 status. But there is something important to note. The farther to the east a system gets named or identified, the better the chances are that it stays out to open ocean. Now, that is not a guarantee, of course. Think back to 2018. Florence came right off of Africa and eventually hit North Carolina. I mean, basically smashing all rainfall records in certain parts of that state. But I'm just saying that history would tell us that this would make the turn before hitting the United States. With that being said, we still have to do our normal forecasting routine with this. And so at this far out, we're going to look for what could be guiding this system around. So this is the latest data we have from our super blend of models from Tomer's website. Great website here again. European model, GFS, the UK Met, out of course, Great Britain, and then the Canadians. We're just going to keep an eye on what could be named Lee very soon. And very tight ensemble clustering of where this is going to go. Just to make a point here, that's all the way out there looking past 5 days, and it's still extremely tight, suggesting that there's high confidence that this system will be here by the time we get in to the end of this weekend. Now, the question is, does it make the turn like the models have been suggesting? So on this forecast that goes out 192 hours, okay, so we're out here, day 7, 8, 9, we're watching this system make this turn to the north. And what we need to see is what are the steering currents in the mid-levels of the atmosphere that could make it take this turn. We know that our subtropical ridge is still sitting over here, but a lot of times it's what's coming across the United States that's critical to the eventual track of this system. So we have a couple of scenarios here that I want to point out to you. We're going to go look at those mid-level steering winds. We're going to start off today. As we play this forward, I need you to get to about right here where we start to see what will likely be named Lee right there, moving toward the northern side of the Lesser Antilles. Now, this is Thursday, getting into Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I'm just going to stop here. This is early in the morning next Monday morning. So this is our tropical system. And what I want you to see is the flow on the northern and western side of it here. So what we've got is that's our polar branch of the jet. There seems to be a subtropical component that comes in like this. And what we have is these kind of two entrance points to our jet stream right in through here, the jet streak really. Now, to its north, there is a weaker ridge in this area, which means we have some influence on sending what will likely be named Lee in this direction. But with flow like this coming off of the United States and then getting pulled here into this jet streak, this one right up here, there's a pretty good chance that Lee does not get close to the United States. I mean, does not hit land. Now, there's always big questions with this because if the models have this wrong and this particular part of the flow is faster, in other words, it's out here over the open Atlantic sooner, then what ends up happening is the backside of it actually pulls Lee into the United States. And so there's still a timing issue here. Those are the two scenarios that I wanted to paint. There's still a timing issue here, but I think that's going to be what we end up seeing happen with Lee. So at the end of this, you see Lee getting just shoved out. See that trough just grabbing it and shoving it out there and keeping it away from the United States. Now, where I am right now in the forecast, you can see the eastern half of North America, and this was a major bust in the forecast from last week. If you remember, I thought we'd see ridging that's extended from Texas all the way to Wisconsin, probably past the 10th, 11th, 12th, and it didn't even make it that far. If we go have a look at this, I want to show you what I'm talking about. Staring down the northern hemisphere right here on the North Pole, this is the jet stream level winds. As I play this forward, this is the ridge that we saw opening up. Again, still here this week, through the end of this week. I thought it'd still be warm, but this ridge is nowhere near the amplitude that it was, and it's backed up by a much stronger flow coming off of the subtropics. The polar jet's disconnected. It's split, as you can see here, And this was just not well portrayed. But we knew that something like this was going to take shape. We knew that this piece of the subtropical jet was going to come in. But just remember, last week we saw much greater extension of that ridge into this area. And it's just gone. It's not there anymore. Now, there's a lot of different things we could blame it on, but I'll be honest. I think it's some downstream troughing here, and I think it's some upstream troughing in and around Alaska that really made this the case. It also helps that there's a big ridge that built into Scandinavia to help support these two troughs. Now, all that is to say this: going out there through the week into next week, we're getting very El Nino-like vibes out of this flow. We made a case for that last week, right? This is the strong subtropical component of the jet stream. There it is again. The Middle East coming off of Asia. That's that typical split in the flow pattern that we can get when there is El Nino conditions that are brewing. So I look at all of this and begin to see a change in the pattern. And it was not well represented a week ago, but it's what we do. We just watch the evolution of this together. So why it's important is because the last couple of weeks have been extremely wet. Of course, this is a lot from Hillary. This is Idalia, and there's Harold. But in the midsection of the country, extremely dry conditions here. And it's not just over the last couple of weeks. We can go back over the last month, and someplace down south over the last 2 to 3 months. It's been extremely dry in this area, pushing our drought monitor into the exceptional drought range down here in Texas. But a lot of the crop that's in the midsection of the country finished under very, very dry conditions with a heat wave at the very end of August. And so we just think about the compounding effect of that. And you can look at that soil moisture map and show that in terms of percentile, we're still very, very low on the Mississippi, Missouri, and parts of the Ohio Basin and the Great Lakes Basin. So this is going to be of major concern for a lot of us going forward here in the midsection of the country as to what this means for the Mississippi River. Just understand, a lot of the water that's flowing down here is fed in by the Ohio and fed in by the Missouri and the northern tributaries. So we're going to keep an eye on Memphis. That's been our go-to spot here for about a year now. Before I show you that, take note of parts of Virginia. The Willamette Valley continues to be very, very dry. And there's pockets here in the Canadian Prairie, Montana, that have missed out on this as well. But back to the Mississippi River, we are currently 5.49 feet. Whoops, let's get to the end there. 5.49 feet below low stage. A year ago at this time, we were 3.67 feet below low stage. But a very dry rest of September and October dropped it all the way down here to 10 to 11 feet, almost 12 feet below low stage last year. So the concern is, do we just continue to see this happening in the forecast? We need to think hard about that. Because while a moment ago I showed you percentile, this is actually moisture availability. And you can see when we model the soil moisture values, there are just a lot of places here down to Texas and then back into the Canadian Prairie that have no moisture in the soil locked away down, 36 inches or so or a meter. All right, so where are we? This is where we are today. There is the low. You can see the frontal boundary that's passing. This was not well represented a week ago. So to see this front coming through, it's really going to cool things off. That's what's left of GERT, by the way, over here. And if we look out how this is going to shake down, this is today's severe weather outlooks. We're going to keep an eye on Minnesota, Wisconsin. But that front drapes all the way down to the Red River Valley of the south. And then tomorrow, the front continues to press through parts of the eastern Corn Belt, eastern Great Lakes, down to the mid-south. So let's go have a quick look at it on our high-res NAM model. So picking this up early this morning. Again, we're just going to watch for the strong to severe storms later in the day today here. The main frontal boundary kind of pulling farther to the south, but getting that cooler air coming in behind it. This goes into the overnight hours tonight into Wednesday morning. So again, we're going to watch for just a lot of unsettled weather to continue to be associated with that low, stretching right in through this region throughout the day tomorrow on Wednesday. You then note as this system kind of pulls itself over to parts of Ontario, and again, we'll just watch the southern corridor of this. There is the risk as this next little shortwave comes into the Pacific Northwest that we could get some storms coming over the Rockies here as well as we work our way through Wednesday afternoon and evening. All right. Now, what happens after this is kind of shown here. So this is the first system. It's currently sitting there. It's going to move east. Notice how dry we are after Hurricane Idalia down here in the southeast. But we watched a trend over the weekend of increasing rainfall amounts in parts of the central and southern plains. We want to go out there and look and see the timing of that. So to do that, we're going to go right to the European model. And I know I've been asked this, I'm just going to tell you, I've not been using the GFS at all lately. It's got some major issues right now, especially with its temperature forecasts, which have really just shown up to be quite terrible this summer. And it's really messing with what we call the boundary layer in the model. And I think that's really influencing its ability to figure out the low level moisture. So I've been sticking with the European because it's not exhibiting those behaviors. So through Wednesday into Thursday, there's the first low we just discussed. Brings the front all the way to the East Coast by Friday, which is going to give the best chances of getting some rain here late in the week. And then as we play this out through the weekend, there is, born on the leading edge of a big area of high pressure here, watch this system coming through the plains while one system tries to leave Virginia, and boy, do they need that rainfall right there this weekend. But as that system tries to leave the East Coast, look at this next big dome of high pressure settling in, a front out ahead of it, and that is the front right there that we have to watch the timing of as it slips right back through the same area. We have to watch that one to see if it can kick what would be named Lee out to open ocean. That's the big kind of barrier that it'd have to go through to hit the United States. But you saw that right here in the middle part of the country, beginning this weekend, late this weekend, and early next week, there's a low that sneaks through, and it's on the leading edge of this big area of high pressure that delivers some rain to the central plains of the United States. And if we kind of look at it in terms of kind of aggregate, this is the 10-day precipitation anomaly forecast, so drier conditions here, but wetter in the plains, wetter in New England, possibly wetter in Virginia, but all across the north wetter. We're drier in the west. Our chances of getting at least an inch of rain are shown here, so it's highest in those areas I just identified. The drier spots look like this. So now we can start to see where we're continuing to get some drier conditions in through here. Very dry in the west as the flow splits. And even out into week 2, we've now seen the models transition drier in the west, but wetter here. All 3 models, it shows up. So that's what we're going to be paying attention to for the next couple of weeks here. Now I'll give you the longer range in just a few moments, but before I do that, I've got to talk about the temperatures. It's time we start looking at this map again. It's been since May that I brought this one up, but this is your next 7 days looking at the frost potential. So we're just trying to identify those areas that could possibly get one. It's mostly elevation driven, as you can see here, but there's some cool spots here and some cooler weather that's sneaking into the country. I mean, take a look at this. That's today's high temperatures compared to normal. Massive swing in temperatures in the plains, but a lot of heat out ahead of this. By Wednesday, the front advances. Thursday, it's cooler here. Heat rebuilds behind this system, cooler in the west. We then get out there to Friday, into Saturday and Sunday. Here comes the next shot at some cooler air early next week, Sunday into Monday. And this was the bust right here. We had thought that once we got past the middle of the month, this would break, but we're not even close to it yet. And we are already seeing more chances of some cooler weather coming in here. And the reason for that, I'm going to just give you one more shot at this. I think this was not well represented here. These troughs that are coming out of the Arctic into the Bering Sea and the ridging that's happening over parts of Europe, I think that really influenced the depth of this trough right there, that one. And what that did was reinforce this pattern by the time we get into the weekend. So if you got troughing here, they'll be ridging along the west and they'll be troughing again in the east. So that's the flow you end up getting. And I just didn't think this trough would be as deep as it is currently forecast. So if it sticks around there, there's no reason to be bringing in major heat in the eastern half of the country. And that's why the next 5 days looks like this, but day 5 through 10 looks like that. And day 10 through 15 looks like this. We were expecting this late in the month, but this is much earlier than I think I was anticipating. Okay, where's the attribution to all of this? Could we blame it on El Nino? Not partly. I mean, El Nino's having an influence on that subtropical jet, but look, we've now seen this region continue to get warmer. We're 1.5 degrees above average here, nearly 5 degrees above average there. You've got the heat that's in the North Pacific. You've got the heat that's in the Atlantic. By the way, this is the cold water trail from Franklin right there. But the influence of this El Nino is beginning to show up. Our Southern Oscillation Index, which is a measure of pressure patterns, okay? You got to stay below -7. So we were way down there back in August. We then shot up at the end of August, but still didn't get above that -7 threshold, and it's dipped back down again. And I expect you'll see this kind of sinusoidal wave continuing as this El Nino grabs more of the flow of the overall pattern. And I think it's going to influence this. This is it. This is where I kind of boil down what I think your long-range forecast is going to come from. It's the progression of the MJO. Now, when you look at these diagrams with me, remember, this is today, and this goes through the next 15 days. And when I say, where's the MJO, you're looking for this. That blue-green color represents rising motion in the atmosphere. And this color, these warmer colors, represents sinking motion. So when we say the MJO is progressing, it means it moves east. It's currently in phase 3, 4, and it's going to move through these other phases over to 7, 8. See how that works? This is time, and you've got this range of latitudes here represented on the map. So what we're going to have now is some suppression over South America, over the Atlantic Ocean, over the main development region for hurricanes. This is what's kind of calming things down a little bit, even though Lee's going to sneak in under this. But as this progresses, what this likely means is you get out here past the 15th to the 19th, we're going to see the late month hurricane season crank back up again. This could also mean a progression toward much later in the month, maybe early October, rains coming back to parts of Brazil. And as this all resets like this is going to give us a pattern that doesn't get stuck. It's going to give us a pattern in September that in late and early October that continues to evolve. You know what I mean? Persistence won't be a good guide. I think the MJO will be a good guide. So as a reminder, you are currently nearing the peak of the hurricane season. It's coming over the next 10 to 20 days. We're going to see our peak of the hurricane season go past. So technically, we still have about 55 to 60% of the hurricane season ahead of us. And as I said, late in the month of September, I think past the 15th, 16th, it's going to get cranking again on tropical systems. So here's the other thing this is going to affect. This forecast, which we talked about on Friday, is going to bust. And the reason for that is that we've already seen the temperatures taking a dive here into next week. We've seen the increases of precipitation here. We've watched it go drier in the west. And there's good indication that if El Nino really grabs hold of this, that this forecast, which I know what the CBC was doing, they were looking last week, they saw the same thing we saw. And remember, I told you on Friday, I buy this. I told them I don't anymore. And I bet you they don't either. But they don't update their forecasts every day like I do. They change it over longer timescales. So we're going to look at these maps, but understand they will likely not verify. I expect there to be wetter conditions at times here, drier in the west, and multiple shots at cooler weather diving through here like the ones we're going to see here in the near term. And the other thing this is going to affect, and this is the last thing I'll cover today, is South America. Over the next 10 days, this is total accumulated precipitation. And remember, we had good rains 10 days ago, but now it's going very dry over a big area of where Brazil grows a lot of crop. And a lot of these growers, which we've kind of heard mixed news, they were allowed to plant early, they're not allowed to plant early, it doesn't matter. They're going to be able to plant in, 9 days from now anyway. So drier, they're going to have to wait. But very wet in southern Brazil, Paraguay, and pockets of Argentina, including the Paraná River Basin, which needs a lot of water to get its levels back up. So we'll keep this front of mind as we go forward, but appreciate your extra attention this morning, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks.